his fingers going into my chest and pulling out the roots from around my heart of bitterness. And so, what I realize he's doing now is he's clearing the soil for good fruit. He's clearing the soil for solid roots.
I think I'm being safe by building up walls around myself because then nothing can get in. I'm also keeping good things out. Like I'm keeping out the love of Christ.
But it was once he started loosening that soil and loosening those roots that he was able to let the seeds that had been planted so long ago.
Now, before we get into today's episode, I have a question for you. How long have you been sitting on that book idea? If you're tired of thinking about it and ready to actually make progress, then join me the last Sunday of every month for my live writing masterclass. It's an interactive space where you finally gain clarity on your book and take it from ideation to implementation. So if you're ready to invest in your dream and finally take action, then head over to jorioneale.com/your_story_matters. Click the link below in the show notes, and I'll see you inside. Welcome back to another lovely episode of 30 Minutes of Power. TOP, your one-stop shop for all things encouraging, entertaining, and motivating. I'm Jori O'Neale. Hey, how you doing, people? Listen, I have a truly inspiring guest with me today, Miss Jennifer Beeman. She's a child of God, a wife, a mother, a student, and a best-selling author. She's the co-author. I don't know, people. Listen, if you ain't got this book yet, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing. But my homegirl, Jennifer, she co-authored this book with me. It's a powerful collection of stories about the transformation, and that's just what we're going to talk about today, about moving from just knowing about Jesus to truly living in his word and in action. So Jennifer has such a heart for sharing how God shows up in her life, and I can't wait for you all to hear from her today. So welcome to the show, Jennifer!
Thank you, thank you. Absolutely. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. So lately I've been starting off the show with this question. How did your faith journey begin?
Mm.
We just gonna jump straight into it.
Let's do it. So I felt like I have always known God. I can't remember a time when I wasn't talking to him. As a kid, I would walk around our complex, where our apartment complex, and I would just talk to God. I probably look crazy to our neighbors, but like I would just walk around and have full-blown conversations, and it just built from there. Uh, but as life comes in and things happen and the trauma comes, I quit talking so much. Um, or when was talking, I was talking to talk and not to listen.
Mm.
And so as, the teenage years come and all of the questions and all of the things that come along with that, I kind of let the faith go, and it was up and down. It was, oh, I'm really close to God. I hear him. I'm listening. But that tippy top was very small. It was very short. And then I would go down to the valley, but I'm looking at all the shadows. And I'm not thinking that it's temporary. So I'm not listening. And then I would go up and I would find a bright spot. Things would get a little better. Hit that tippy top again, meet with God, and then I go back down. And it was through in my late 20s where I really started to dig in, and I started to just shut my mouth and listen. And at first, I was feeling like I can't hear anything, like I'm not hearing God. And I would go to church and I'm like, oh, that sounds great. But then it was like there was a walk, like I couldn't feel it. There was something that just wasn't for me. And it was like I had this wall built up. And everything that I thought about God, I was throwing at this wall. And when I hit the wall, it was like a water balloon filled with paint. And I would throw it at the wall and it would explode. And that's what my eyes would see of God. And what he could get to me was whatever I put on that wall. But that was my limited vision. That's not how he saw me. So what through like my 20s and into my 30s, as I get into parenthood and I start to see my reactions to my child, and I'm wondering, where the heck is this coming from? I start looking and going, God, I am not gentle. I am pretending to be gentle. I'm not. And I don't like it. And I don't like pretending. And from my past and from my traumas, anybody who was pretending was not safe. That made me unsafe. And so I started praying and really sharing my story. I had kept it very guarded. And I started sharing my story within small groups at church. And I felt like God was pulling the bricks down. What
Mm.
I thought was mortared up was actually very shaky. It wasn't mortar, it wasn't solid. And so he started taking those bricks down. And when he got far enough down, he started, and this is visual, of his fingers going into my chest and pulling out the roots from around my heart of bitterness. And he was pulling out the bitterness. He was pulling out the unforgiveness. He was pulling out the resentments. And he's like, let me have this. And this in my heart, there was like a physical pain in my heart when this was happening, but it was also it's okay, it needs to happen. And so what I realize he's doing now is he's clearing the soil for good fruit. He's clearing the soil for solid roots. He's clearing out all of the toxins that kept me from fully allowing him to love me because I didn't know how or that it was even possible that somebody could love me like that. And it wasn't a somebody person, it was all God. It was Jesus. And I couldn't accept it because I couldn't love myself because of what I put on that wall. And so that is a very, very small snapshot of my journey in faith and how it started. But it was once he started loosening that soil and loosening those roots that he was able to let the seeds that had been planted so long ago begin to germinate and provide that solid surface. So if you know anything about like erosion, as like the more roots that you have, when the waters come and when the floods come, not everything is going with it. Things get washed out, but not everything's going with it. And you've got that solid soil there. And so that was the visual that he gave me as I was going through this process. And that is, like I said, just a very small snapshot of my journey in faith. And it has just continued to grow over the last 10 years. It has absolutely blossomed. And he just keeps bringing me to new revelations of how much he loves his creation and how much we are in his image.
I love that. I feel like sometimes it's so easy to know things about God, right? But not always live in the truth of what does it mean to be in relationship with the creator of the universe.
Right.
And so I'm studying the Bible with a campus student right now, and she's grown up in church her whole life, right? She can quote all the scriptures. She knows where the verses are for all these things. And I'm like, okay, how do you feel? And she's like, I don't know. How,
Mm.
I'm like, the Bible is very basic instructions before leaving Earth. Cool. You can do all the things, you can quote all the things, you can say all the things. I'm like, but how do you feel when you read the Bible? How do you feel? Like, and I think it's a interesting illustration that you use with throwing things against the wall and then them like exploding and splattering and how you were building up this wall. And I I so I'm a visual person. So one day we're having like a family devo and I draw a wall, right? And I draw this wall. And when I draw this wall, I'm like, hey, I think I'm being safe by building up walls around myself because then nothing can get in, right?
Yes.
But that means nothing can get out either. So all the things that I've held on to, pain, bitterness, resentment, anger, and like I can't get it out. Not only am I keeping the bad things out though, I'm also keeping good things out. Like I'm keeping out the love of Christ. I'm keeping out the trust of others. I'm keeping out joy. Like, and so it wasn't, but I had to draw the wall. Right? I had to draw it so I can see, like, oh, this is what I'm doing when I keep people at a distance. This is what I'm doing when I'm refusing to be honest, when I'm refusing to be vulnerable, when I'm refusing to be open about the things happening in my life. And so I wanna talk a little bit because you said that there was a physical pain that you felt in correlation with God weeding and removing the bitter root from you.
Mhm.
That connection. Can you share more about the connection between the physical and it seems like the spiritual that you've experienced in your life?
Yeah. So it was more, it was like a pain and any time that I now know and understand, but I didn't understand at the time. Any time that there is healing that is happening in my body and that I've heard other people talk about, there is a warmth and usually a vibration. And it was at that time when he was moving things that it felt like a pain, but it wasn't sharp. It was dull and it was achy, but it was warm, and my insides were vibrating a vibration that I would felt like maybe I was standing on a train side, and it was just like, but at the same time, like my mind was at peace. There
Mm,
was something about it that was grounding. So you take your shoes off and you just go stand in the grass in the sunlight. There is something about that grounding and that connection. And it was one of those moments. I wasn't outside, I was inside of our church home at the time. The warmth that comes with the healing and the light that comes, the light, I didn't know I wasn't seeing properly. Like I could see light. Light was just, it was just brighter. It was like somebody took off a veil. And I was like, I didn't know I was looking through um through this veil. I didn't know I was covered like that. And it was, I don't know, it just felt like radiating. I think that's a good word for it. Just throughout my entire body. And every single time that I have been healed since then of different things, it has always been the vibration and the warmth.
I I appreciate that you are entering into this space that I think a lot of Christians get a little leery
Mm.
to go into. Jesus is the master healer,
Mhm.
and to relegate his ability to heal to only the stories we read in the Bible, I think is I think is detrimental to the Christian faith because we have put a cap on Jesus's ability to continue to do the things that he said that he would do, right? He says, all authority in heaven and earth is given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples,
Yeah.
baptizing in the name of the Father, Son, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded. And lo, I will be with you to the ends of the earth. I'm like, if he says to the ends of the earth until the earth ends,
Yeah.
if you are a baptized disciple of Jesus Christ, then you have the power to do the things. And so I thank you for venturing into that space. Even with talking about vibrations and radiation, like when people hear those words, some people in a Christian faith, they get a little like, oh, that's so woo woo. That's not. And I'm like, do you read the Bible? Like, if you
I'm
read
kind of
it,
wondering.
if you read it, like Mark 1:35, early in the morning, Jesus went to a solitary place to pray. What the entire Psalms, David went off, solitary place to pray. Like the idea of solitation and meditation, like and the ability to be able to hear from God when you still your mind, when you still like
Mm.
I for me, I'm like, that's probably one of the more exciting parts that I get to now experience in my Christian walk. Right. When I was younger, I was like, oh, wow, I'm reading all these cool stories of how
Right.
God and Jesus and oh, it's so great. And now I'm like, once I start tapping into the Holy Spirit, once I start allowing Jesus to permeate me from the inside out,
Mm.
once I start going through this process of sanctification, right? Like
Right.
now that same power, that same authority, like I get to tap into that. And now it's
Yeah.
like, God, how are you going to use me to do these incredible things now? And so I think that's dope. I love that. So you initially shared that part of the breaking down that wall began with you being willing to kind of like remove bricks. And it almost, the visual that I got was that you would remove a brick from that wall that you had built up and you were giving it away in the form of your testimony. So,
Mm-hmm.
what, I don't know if you've ever thought of it like that.
No, I hadn't.
You welcome. You welcome.
Yeah. They-
What what do you have to say to people who are still there with that wall and feeling like I don't know if anybody's gonna understand what I've been through. I don't know if they're gonna understand my story. Like I've been through too much. It's too much to share. Like, what would you say to someone who feels that their past disqualifies them from sharing their testimony?
That is the lie that holds you right where you're at. Uh, you will not always find yourself in a place where everybody will understand. And it's okay because there's going to be the one person who didn't know they needed to hear what you had to say. There were moments in these small groups, and like get into your church, get into a small group because, and I know we hear it so often if you're in the churches, but I mean, even if it's not in your church, find a Christ centered small group because that is where the connection and the deep work happens. Those are where those vulnerable moments take place. And it is you just listening to that small whisper. Like, I wonder if I share this, if it would have anything to do with what we're talking about. And it won't always land the way you think it needs to land, but it's going to land the way it needs to land, not the way you planned it to. And you may not get response right away. If you're looking for, and your purpose is to fill that void where you're like, you need people to go, oh my gosh, I totally get it. And I'm with you. If that is your purpose, you won't ever get that.
Mm-hmm.
You will never find that. And if you find it, it's a fleeting moment that will leave you empty because it doesn't stay and it is not of substance. But if you find even a couple people that you can share with and even just let them sit with it. I had to let go of my need to be validated immediately.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to let go and be willing to know that I'm sharing with other humans who might also have to process something.
Mm-hmm.
And just like yourself, seeing myself in other people, like I know that after I leave a conversation, after I leave this podcast, I'm gonna be like, I should have, should have talked about this and we should have done that. And they have those same moments. So if you are in connection with this small group of people, they can reach back out to you and say, hey, I processed this. Let's talk about it. And it's those moments, God led moments, one at a time, that actually start to pile up and take those bricks down. And actually, they're working on their own wall. The other people you're working with, they're not there to just break down your walls and come and rescue. You guys are working together. Just like in Nehemiah, like so many people, so many different types of people were coming in from all walks of life, working to build that wall. There, you know, now we're coming in from so many walks of life to break down these walls so that we can actually focus on the cornerstone of Jesus.
I love that. And if you're not catching what she if you're not picking up what she putting down, let me give you to it in layman's terms, people. Let me give it to you in layman's terms from what I understood. She's talking about being in a community where you can receive mentorship,
Mhm.
accountability, and faith building. Um,
Yes.
those are the types of environments that aid and allow for vulnerability and authenticity because you're going to be around these people on a consistent basis. This isn't for the corporate space. So you're going to need
Mhm.
to maybe create some small groups within your larger church community, or if you have a neighborhood of humans and maybe y'all all go to a different church and you're just like, listen, we're going to build our own community, faith centered, right? Christ is the chief cornerstone. As long as you got that going on, you're cool. I'm part of this church community in my neighborhood. We all go to different churches, but
Mhm.
we all form one sisterhood. And part of that sisterhood is to keep watch around each other, right? To pray over each other's children, to go and visit each other when we're sick. I've received clothes for my kids from other people in my sister group. I've been able to bless other people with clothes, with, you know what I mean? So getting in these community faith-based groups They may not exist. You might be the spark. Like you might be the person that needs to start a group in your own community. If you're like, well, they don't have anything like that around where I live. All right, so you go do it. Go do it. If you want to get to a level of deep relationship with other people, or even if you're scared to get in deep relationship with other people, I would challenge you to go create a small group, go find a small group. They exist. So I love that. I was gonna ask you about community and you went there anyway, because that's where God took you. I love that.
Yep.
But word on the street, Jennifer.
Hmm.
Outside of writing and sharing your testimony, I heard you got some other talents. I heard you be baking stuff and being a barista. What's up with that? What's up with that? Like, how did that start? Like, I wanna understand because I've been in church for a long time, and I never picked up that skill. That's not my gift. That's not my ministry. So I'm always interested in people like, oh, I bake. I'm like, how? When? Where? Why? Like, so
Ah,
how did you get into doing this? Because you do this at your church.
so the baking part I do at home, but I bring the goodies to church. And then the barista part I do at church. The baking part is a God story, but before we go too far, I just want to bring up that the book that we co-authored together, that is amazing. It's actually a women's devotional book that you can go through in your small group. So, anyways,
Ooh,
moving on.
bars.
Um, the my husband's texting me because I haven't called him yet this morning. Anyways, I'll get to him in a minute. Um, we started, that's a whole God story. So God had moved us from Arizona back to North Carolina. And if you want to know the first part of that story, you'll have to get the book. And then while we were in North Carolina the second time, um, we lived in a very small town and we would walk around and there was a bakery in this town. And so like God just put it on my heart to ask the owner, who I'd kind of become friends with over a couple of months, if she needed some help. And she was like, no, we're good, we're good. And then she calls me back and she's like, hold on, do you know how to decorate cookies? I was like, I'm creative and I made my cousin's wedding cake. If you want to see a picture. So I pulled up the picture and it was no joke. Like all I did was put blueberries around the edge and used like those little imprints, put the imprint and then like just filled in the imprint. Like it was not my work. And I was very clear about that. And she's like, my decorator's leaving and I think you should come in and try. I'm like, all right, no promises. And she's like, but I can't really pay you much of anything. I was like, don't even worry about it. Honestly, I have nowhere for my kids to go because I don't trust anybody in town because I don't know them. She's like, you know what? Go ahead and bring them with. Let's give it a try. So I go in and like my cookies were horrendously delicious. They were not pretty. They were delicious. They were not pretty. And but through her absolute grace, I tutored under her current decorator. I tutored under her. I watched a ridiculous amount of YouTube. I practiced at home and I found a talent. I was getting better. I was getting good. I did my own orders without needing assistance. And the customers were like, this is amazing. But what God was teaching me in that time is that your good enough is good enough. Um, because I was perfectionist. Oh, I still struggle. I still struggle. I wanted it to look like YouTube, and it did not look like YouTube, but it was really close. Uh, and she's like, well, they come to us for homemade. They don't come to us because they want what they see on YouTube. They'll order it there if that's what they want. I'm like, all right. So it was an entire grace-filled journey where God brought in a lady who was a mom when I needed a mom, a grandmother when my kids needed a grandmother. She, uh, we just talked. I don't know if you've ever heard Tuesdays with Maury, if you've heard of that book. Okay, well, we had Monday with Gwen. So Monday we weren't open. And we would just have these deep theological conversations all Monday while we were prepping orders and prepping the bakery. And I just, as I progressed in my ability to decorate and create, I also progressed in my willingness to step out of my comfort zone and to lead.
Mm,
So I was learning the other parts of the kitchen. I was learning how to take care of the shop when she needed to go on vacation. I was learning how to make coffee. Like we had our coffee roaster right next door. So I was learning all about coffee. I was learning how to do all that stuff. And over these 4 years, we just formed this relationship. We're still friends today. My kids still call her Grandma Gwen. And like, if we were to go back to North Carolina, when we do, we don't rent a hotel, we bomb her house when we're coming, make space. And so, but it was also in that I saw Jesus come through those doors in the form of people who came in to work for us. We had people with past, we had people who were on the spectrum. We had people who we knew were not going to stick around but needed to be there for a time. So we found them a job. And we just, every time someone left, God brought somebody else in. When it was my time to go, God brought somebody else in. It was just this entire thing. And that's where one of my big passions is baking, because as far as what I like to do, the phrase that we go with, or the tagline, I don't know what to call it. This is a slogan or something like that. We do creating moments of joy through acts of kindness, because when you're giving a sweet, or you're buying something, it is an act of kindness. So you're creating a moment of joy and connection with somebody else. And the barista thing is just fun.
so it seems like God met you in the everyday,
Mhm.
right? There was no specific
Mhm.
for this season of your life. It doesn't sound like you necessarily connected with a small group. It was more of a discipling relationship that you had with Gwen. It sounds where
It was.
she nurtured you, she loved you,
Mhm.
she cared for you, she taught you, she mentored you, right?
Mhm.
Not just in the word of God, but also just like i- in
In the
creativity, right? In
handles.
this
Hmm.
skill. I love that. I miss seeing more relationships like that, where we are not gatekeeping our talents and our abilities and our gifts, but we're using them as an act of service. It also sounds like her bakery became almost like a community center in your
100%.
town. You have
100%. It absolutely
children
is.
staying there after school. You have individuals who need maybe some job training. You have, sounds like individuals who maybe have felt othered, who now feel
Mhm.
community, right?
Yes.
In that
Yes.
small
Yes.
space. And you got food. And anytime there's food, I'm like, food, fellowship, and faith. I love it. Just give me that every day. I love that.
100%.
Jennifer, this has been such a rich conversation. Before we go, I do want people to be able to connect with you because you still do make those cookies and you ship them across the country. Is this accurate?
It is accurate. I'm going to put a little caveat in there. I have
Yeah.
moved to Arizona. In Arizona, they have laws that restrict what I can use in my cookies, and I refuse to use other items that I know are not going to be as delicious and they're not going to be as pretty. So, in staying in accordance with the law, I am able to donate cookies. I'm able
Okay.
to do it as a hobby until God A has released me to fulfill the law and to follow. And once that is done, then I will be able to ship once again throughout the country, and I would gladly do so.
Well, we gonna pray for that day. We gonna pray because
Yes.
I wanna taste Gwen's mentored cookies.
Bye.
Listen, I want people to be able to connect with you outside of cookies. I mean,
Yeah.
your story is impactful, is powerful. It's here before she knew Jesus, but they can also hear you on Stories of a Faith Builder, your new
Yeah. Yeah.
podcast. Yes, boo boo.
Yes.
So tell us where else can we find you? Are you on social media? Like tell us all
Oh
the
yeah.
deets.
All right. So I am on Facebook at Stories of a Faith Builder. I'm on Instagram at Stories of a Faith Builder. I'm on Threads at Stories of a Faith Builder. I'm on YouTube at Stories of a Faith Builder. And I have storiesofaffaithbuilder.com.
It sounds pretty consistent. Stories of a Faith Builder is where you're going to find
You're
Jennifer
not
at.
going to miss it.
I love that. I love that. So, if someone's listening right now and they feel stuck, they feel like maybe they know about Jesus, haven't stepped fully into that deep transformation of faith. Maybe they haven't taken down the first brick from that wall. What would you say to them? Final words of encouragement.
I'm going to say, know that behind your obedience is grace and kindness and mercy and forgiveness for yourself. Behind your obedience is a connection to someone else's obedience who's going to help heal and restore. We are humans intended to do life together with God at the center. Jesus is here now, not someday, not once in a while. He's here now. And God is fully committed to his relationship with you before you were ever submitted to him. And if you're not, he knows. And he's here. And he wants to work with you and walk with you because he's already been doing it. He's just waiting for your moment to take a risk. I know it's scary. I know. I know it can feel like it's going to hurt again. I've been there. And for someone, and I know Jori's been there too, for us who have been on the inside of that wall, and you are so afraid to let your heart out. Maybe it's because you have been living this way for so long and you're like, I don't know any other way to live. It's okay because God is here for your transformation. He already loves you 100%, whether you can feel it or not at the moment. It doesn't change what's true. Whatever questions come, whatever curiosities come, does not change the truth of what you stand on. He will work with you through it. Amen.
Amen. Jennifer, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your heart with us. And to our listeners, if this episode spoke to you, be sure to share with a friend, subscribe, and leave a review, people.
Yeah.
Y'all got to leave some reviews. All right, people. Listen, until next time, keep walking in faith and telling your story. Always be an empowered person, using your power to empower others. Peace. All right, before we wrap up today, I want to remind you, if the book is on your heart, then this Sunday is your chance to finally take that first step. Join me for a live writing masterclass, and we'll break down the book writing process and get you moving forward from idea to execution. I'm excited for you. I don't want you to miss this. So head over to jorioneale.com/your_story_matters. Thanks for tuning in to 30 Minutes of Power. We hope today's episode inspired you to take action and make a positive change in your life. Remember, your power is meant to empower others. So share this episode with someone who needs encouragement today. We'd love to hear from you. So connect with us on Instagram at 30 Minutes of Power or email us at azironsharpensiron@gmail.com. Until next time, stay empowered and keep empowering others.
30 minutes of power.